But now we are going to do my cup picks. I'm going to give you who I think is going to be playing in the Stanley Cup final and who's going to win. And up first, the team that I think is going to be the runner-up is the New Jersey Devils. I look at the Devils this year. Their top six is absolutely gross. I don't have them that high in the standings because I think guys like Luke Hughes, Simone Nemec, even Tyler Toffoli adjusting to that team, adjusting to that system, and that goaltending tandem is okay, but I don't think it's anything special. I think they're going to somewhat struggle in the regular season a little bit out of the gate, but once this team gets the chemistry going on, and I think Schmidt or Vanacek, one of them will emerge as a legit guy that can potentially go on a run. We saw with Adin Hill, the Devils just need to put out a good team in front of him, and Akira Schmid can absolutely ball, or Vanacek. So I think once the playoffs come around, this team will be cooking. They have the firepower to keep up with anybody, and I think they will have the D-core this time around to potentially beat the Carolina Hurricanes. Last year, Carolina obviously disposed of that. I kind of expected that just because it was the Devils' first run. I think this time around, they're going to have far more experience, know how to deal with a team like Carolina that's a lot more physical of a team. I think they've added some physicality. So when looking at the New Jersey Devils, I think this is a year where they potentially go on a run and take that next step. Last year was the regular season success. This year, they're going to go further in the playoffs and get it done. And winning the Stanley Cup, I probably should make a whole goddamn video on this, but my Stanley Cup pick for next year, it's not the Edmonton Oilers. It's not the Edmonton Oilers. I am not believing in the Edmonton Oilers again. I hook, line, and sinker fell for them last year, and I do think they are going to make the Western Conference Finals, but my pick is coming out of the Central Division. My Stanley Cup pick. It's a team that I think is kind of being underrated, as crazy as it is to sound. I don't have them winning the Central Division because they do have a lot of new pieces that I think are going to take some time to develop chemistry and just overall into the system. But I got the Colorado Avalanche winning the Stanley Cup. It came to me in this past week. I wasn't that high on Colorado if you told me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, but I've slowly started to like this team. A really underrated add was Thomas Tatar, in my opinion. He kind of chokes in the playoffs, but I think at some point he has to actually have a good playoff run. But when you look at this team, last year they were kind of cooked, especially against Seattle once Valeri Nichushkin went down once he had his whole situation. But when looking at this team, they really addressed their depth issues this year. They go out, they get Johansson. Ross Colton, I think, is going to be an upgrade over now Alex Newhook. Miles Wood, not that good of a player. Okay, bottom sixer. Who else did they bring in? Jonathan Drouin, I think, can be a good pickup because he obviously has played with Nathan McKinnon in past years. And just overall, I think they will have a cleaner bill of health. Bowen Byram has not been able to stay healthy. Cale Makar got suspended in one of those games against Seattle, but yeah, he hasn't been healthy. So I think if this team is healthy, they're maybe not as good as their 2022 counterpart because that was, in my opinion, one of the greatest just period teams we have ever seen. I think they might be the most talented team of all time. 119 points in the regular season and then go 16-4 in the playoffs. It was absolutely insane. So I look at the Colorado Avalanche this year and I think they actually have obviously their big three, their three superstars. And instead of Landeskog, who is a very good player and is worth $7 million, they were able to spread out some of that money in order to get Ryan Johansson, get a Jonathan Drouin, get a Ross Colton, get a Thomas Tatar at $1.5 million. They are actually 3 lines deep compared to last year, especially once Nichushkin went down. They were absolutely cooked. They still went to 7 games. They still easily could have won that even with the Makar suspension. I think this year they're going to kind of remind us why this time a year ago we were thinking that they were the next potential dynasty. Alexander Georgiev's going to be massive for them. He was very good in the regular season. He played fine in the playoffs. It was more of just the team overall kind of let them down. But I think that he is the kind of goalie that can be relied on to potentially go on a run. He is a little bit inconsistent, but if we see Adin Hill go out and ball out, Georgiev can have a similar run. And even when they won the Stanley Cup, Darcy Kemper was not that good. For me, the X factor is obviously a guy like Bowen Byram. Can he take that next step is going to be very interesting. Their defense core is good. Their forward core actually has some depth, and the goaltending is not a massive concern. So I look at the Colorado Avalanche. They're still like first or second in cup odds, but I see no one picking them. I think they're going to remind people why they were deemed this next dynasty and get their second cup in 3 years. Now that I say this, Edmonton's definitely going to win the Stanley Cup. Like, book it, put the house on it. Now, and Colorado's going to lose in the first round. But I think they have that, especially that playoff hunger that they lost in the first round. They feel embarrassed. Everybody's talking about Edmonton losing in the second round. Colorado is probably 10 times more pissed. Everybody is sleeping on them. Nathan McKinnon, guy, is an absolute warrior. And you look at them from a front office perspective. Last year, they kind of admitted, especially once Landeskog was done, they admitted that we're not going to go all in. Their deadline moves like Lars Eller. So now they have two elite prospects in Richie and Guliev, and they have their first round pick this year and next year. I think they're going to be a lot more aggressive at the deadline, potentially add most likely to that forward core and get, if Johansson isn't pulling his weight, get a legit second line center or maybe a legit first line winger. If Jonathan Drouin is not as great as we expect him to be with Nathan McKinnon, not as good, but I think they're going to, last year was kind of an off year for them, but they are going to be fully back and fully aggressive this year to go all in and win that Stanley Cup. But let me know in the comments, what do you think?